Cobra Kai may never die, but unfortunately, series have to. And luckily for us, Cobra Kai gets to end its final series on its own terms, finishing the series in a way that at times feels obvious yet fitting, sometimes beautifully poignant, and at other times so shocking and mind-blowing, I generally couldn't believe what I was seeing. This final 5 episodes of Season 6, Part 3, has completely redeemed any issues I had with Season 6. I did think, kind of watching the first 2 parts, that at times, like, it was never bad, but it was my least favorite season, and at times it kind of felt like a weird epilogue to the show, since Season 5 completely wrapped up all of the characters' plots and arcs, and everything kind of felt emotionally complete. And so Season 6 kind of felt like it was forcing a lot of conflict, and things were just kind of happening, and I was kind of like, I don't know. Like, I still have hopes that it might end pretty well, but I did not expect the season to end in such a deeply satisfying way with every single character. I loved every single ending to every plot, but then to give us a final scene that I think will rival any final scene from any show ever, and just go among one of the great all-time endings of a series for its final moment. It was so perfect and wonderful, and it was such a great way to distill everything about this series into one moment that gave you everything. It was truly, truly wonderful. So without further ado, let's get into spoilers for Season 6, Part 3 of Cobra Kai, which is now officially one of my favorite series of all time, and still the most badass name for a dojo. So Part 3 brings us back to the Valley, which felt like an inevitable way to end the series, but it was nice that we went straight back there immediately and kind of weren't spending a couple of episodes wasting more time at Barcelona, because the series at its heart has always been at the Valley, about the Valley, and going to Barcelona for the final season kind of felt a little strange and a little bit like, oh, I understand the idea of a big world tournament. I just kind of don't care about Barcelona. I care about this story about these characters, and it's very quaint and beautiful, and it's just in the Valley. So bringing it back there immediately was just like, I was like, oh, okay, no, I feel like we're cooking, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and maybe actually having these 15 episodes, which felt a little bloated at times, I kind of understand now, because it's like, yeah, we get to go do the big thing in the big city of Barcelona and do all that, but now we come back and we're giving the show time to breathe and kind of give it room to end everything properly in the Valley. Another thing I thought was very interesting, and maybe for a couple of characters a little frustrating, but for a lot of them I'm like, well, yeah, all the emotional arcs and plots have all essentially ended, and that is that essentially the last 5 episodes of Cobra Kai pull an Avengers Endgame, in that they essentially for the first 10 episodes were doing Infinity War, where they had a million characters and all these things going on, and then in these final 5 episodes they strip it all back. They don't make them all disappear and not exist, but they essentially do. Characters like Kenny appear in the background for like 3 seconds. I don't think he has a line in these 5 episodes. They essentially get rid of every single side character, and they focus exclusively on our main 6 heroes and our main 2 villains. And by really focusing in on all those main characters from the beginning of the series, I think it really does them a service and gives them time to finally end the show in the perfect way for all of those characters. And as I said, Season 5 kind of ended all the conflicts for everybody else, so I didn't feel the need for them to have plots and arcs. Except for maybe Hawk, who I kind of wish had a tiny little bit more to do. And so in these 5 episodes, there is so much to cover, but I really just want to exclusively talk about the last couple of episodes and how everybody's plots end, because I think they just did such a great job ending every character and doing something with them that, like, at times you're kind of like, this is exactly what I expected to happen. And sometimes that can be annoying in a show where you're kind of like, yeah, I've seen this all before, this is so obvious. Whereas when it's obvious yet satisfying, you're like, no, but it's obvious because we've been leading to this moment. Like, this is what it's all been leading to, and you want it to end on that thing. Like, you don't want it to just kind of pull the rug out from under you and go, what do you think about that? And it's like, well, that doesn't really fit with the show that I've been watching for years. I don't know, it kind of reminds me a lot of, like, how Game of Thrones was setting one character up for the whole series, and then at the end went, oh, we don't really think that makes sense. And it's like, But why was I watching this character do this thing for so long? It's so annoying and baffling. It's like, you can subvert expectations throughout the story, but if you're telling a story, I still want it to end with something where it's like, yeah, we've been building to that for the whole time. I'm getting angry about Jon Snow again. I'm sorry. Miguel, for me, was that character where I'm like, I've been watching him. He was the main character at the start, and I want him to win the championship and come out on top. Like, it's just, that's what we've been building to for this entire series. So having Robbie in the first 10 episodes be the guy, I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're subverting my expectations, I suppose, but I'm disappointed. I'm kind of like, yeah, I like Robbie. I really like Robbie. I like Miguel more, and he's the main character. He was our Karate Kid Daniel at the start of the series, so to have him not be the one that wins it was kind of like, what are we doing here? And how wrong I was. Egg on my face. Honestly, if eggs weren't so expensive right now, I would literally smash an egg on my face to hammer home the point of how much egg is on my face. But I simply can't afford that, because if I'm buying eggs, I'm going to be eating those bad boys, because they are crazy expensive and just hard to get right now. It's the world we live in. I thought it was so interesting how they took Robbie out of the tournament as well. Like, I just thought it was so kind of, I don't know, fitting, yet bittersweet and tragic to have him come so close to glory and, like his father, lose and be like, oh, I didn't win. That sucks. I wanted to win. And it's like, yeah, I really wanted Miguel to be the one that kind of gets the chance. But having Robbie lose like that, where it's like, he didn't really lose because he wasn't worthy. The other guy cheated and broke his leg. Well, didn't cheat, I suppose, but, you know, he played dirty. And to have Robbie have that beautifully emotional scene with Johnny and just be like, it sucks that everyone can't get to know that I was good enough, because I reckon I was good enough. And you're like, yeah, he probably was. But unlike Johnny, whose father figure beats him up after the win, we get a beautifully poignant scene with Robbie and Johnny, and they just have a really nice heart-to-heart moment of father and son. And it was at that moment where I was like, wow, I can't believe I had my doubts for this final series. My other two reviews for Part 1 and Part 2 weren't like negative, but they were just a bit like, I don't know, I think this is my least favorite season. I don't really like, it's not emotionally getting me. And moments like that, I was like, this show can be so melodramatic and cheesy, and I ate it up. It's so, like, just emotionally powerful. And these characters are just so rich, and there's so much kind of baggage that's happened throughout the whole series. And to have all these characters just end on really happy, beautiful notes, even though he's just lost and he's gonna have a broken leg and he will never get this chance again, probably, presumably, it was just such a nice moment. And that, of course, leads us to Miguel finally getting his moment to come back into the tournament and have the final face-off against generic tall bully character, who I didn't actually hate this time. I feel like there was some really interesting kind of moments with him where he does the big, I'm a bully and I do the big bully thing, and he snaps the leg. And then when he's fighting Miguel, he like looks at his like sensei and he's like, I'm not gonna do the bully thing this time. And because of that, he loses. He can't beat the hero because he's in a movie and the hero's gonna win. I like that bully, even though it kind of did feel very much like season 6, final season kind of thing, where, and it once again reminded me a bit of Game of Thrones, where it's like the whole series has been so interesting because I like both sides, and whoever's fighting whoever, I've always got a reason to care about them, but I understand why they're fighting each other and all this stuff. But then once all of that's concluded, they're just fighting generic ice zombies who I don't really care about. So Big Tall Villain was essentially that. But, I mean, he wasn't the worst thing ever, and some of the stuff he did was kind of interesting. The moment that Cobra Kai stepped down and Kreese is like, I'm going to enter the tournament, but none of these guys are coming, I'm like, oh. I've been waiting for Cobra Kai to get that redemption. There was a line that Stingray said somewhere in this season where he's like, Cobra Kai can still be badass, we can still be the heroes of this. I'm like, that's how the story should end. I want Cobra Kai to be redeemed and to still go on as a dojo, led by Johnny, which obviously we get. And I just really want them to be redeemed in some way, but I was unsure how that was going to happen. But I feel like kind of washing over it and being like, whatever, I don't know, they can join up this other dojo even though we're part of another dojo. Because they were old people in that dojo. They used to be part of that team. Sure, whatever, who cares? There's a lot of things in this tournament that kind of just like, they just like whip out a rule out of nowhere and go, this is what's happening now. And you just have to kind of roll with it. Because otherwise, I don't know. I guess the season couldn't happen. Some of the things I'm like, this tournament's rules are just kind of psycho and insane, and I don't really believe this would happen. But also, this show is ridiculous and silly, so I don't care at all. Miguel's win was something we've been all hyping for and wanting, well, presumably, as I have been, really wanting him to win for so much of this final season. Being like, I just want Miguel to have the final win, the final punch in the face, and yeah, just come out victorious. And it was just so deeply satisfying and awesome. The whole fight was really, really great. One thing that I thought was incredibly funny, though, was he wins and everyone's celebrating and cheering him and like, yeah, baby, we did it. And I'm like, no one paying attention to the score. They drew. It's a draw. He won the fight, but like the tournament's a draw. Everyone's kind of acting like it's not. And then the guy's like, actually, it's a draw. And everyone's like, oh my God, what? I'm like, you all were looking at the score. How do you not know? It was just a weird, bizarre moment. I understand it's just for like dramatic pacing or whatever of the scene, but just really, really weird for all the characters to completely forget that yes, they've won, but it's a draw. What does that mean? What does that mean? Stupid nonsense rules where now the senseis have to fight. And honestly, it's a testament to how much I love this series, where I just went, oh yeah, hell yeah, baby, and didn't go, I'm sorry, what? Out of all the things that I expected from this final season and these final episodes, Johnny having a final fight so that he actually like physically fighting and not being the teacher to get that glory back that he lost in Karate Kid and essentially come full circle for the whole series, I just never occurred to me. But it's so fitting. It's so deeply just like, that's the only way this show could have ended. And it's crazy to me that I never thought about it. We get the song from Karate Kid and Daniel's like, we're training, and they're doing the training montage and it's over the top and ridiculous and super, super fun. It's just crazy. That's the first time they've played the Karate Kid song, You're the Best Around, I think. Or maybe they play it every single season and I've just forgotten. I'm not actually sure. But it did feel like they were like saving it for this moment. And it's just crazy. Like a show like this being like, yeah, we've got this one like banger that's going to like be from Karate Kid. And they're just like, we're not going to use it yet though. We're going to wait until the very final episode to use it. Like, that's crazy. I don't know, just to have that restraint and to have that confidence they're going to make it to a 6th season and to finally use it. Maybe they were like, if we get cancelled, we'll whip it out in the finale of whichever season that is. I suppose they could have decided to do that. But it's just so nice to have a series that's fully just everything it wanted to be, and like that, it saved. It didn't use it in season 1. It saved a moment like that, and it just filled me with joy. As soon as Johnny rocked up for the fight and he was feeling a little bit out of it, and you're like, oh, okay, he's going to lose the first couple of points. He's going to be like, I don't believe in myself. And then Daniel's going to be like, believe in yourself. And it's one of those things where it's like, there's so much of this season was so obvious and exactly what it needed to be, but it just did it, but it did it so well, and it just feels earned. And it's like, yeah, that's what we've been building to. These are the moments that I just want to see. And one of them was Daniel's obviously going to be like, use Miyagi-Do, think peace. And Johnny's going to be like, it's not working for me. And then he's going to be like, man up, you pussy. Only pussies lose and stuff. And he's going to do a big Johnny speech. And he does. And Daniel saying pussy, Johnny style, was just really surreal and weird, but just beautiful. Like, it was maybe the most beautiful use of pussy ever on screen. It was, I loved it so much. It just warmed my heart while being just so crass and dumb and silly. The combination of these two guys and their two kind of, ways of looking at like karate was just so well done throughout this whole series. And there was moments like that where all they have to do is be like, switcheroo, and I'm like, yes, please. Whilst I do love Daniel, I think Johnny has truly been our main character. If we're really distilling it down to one character who needs to fully focus, I think it is Johnny. And so to focus on him having the fight, him being trained by Daniel, his old enemy that kind of started all of this, if you will, and started him on this downward path to help him kind of climb his way out. It's just so beautiful and fitting. And I love seeing that flashback at the start of the episode where he's like, I'm a loser, mom, I suck. And then coming full circle where he puts the picture of everybody there, some flowers, and you really get that sense of how far he's come and how much it means to him. And I absolutely love it. But one thing I loved even more than him winning and finally getting that win was the fact that I would never have even considered that he wouldn't win if they hadn't put in the most incredible foreshadowing, which turned out to be a misdirect, but just a scene where Daniel's like, hey, you remember Rocky? Not the crazy ones that you love, but the first one. What happened? he lost. But did he lose? He had his family, he made it the distance, and just Daniel saying that, I'm like, oh boy. I never even considered that he would lose because it's not that kind of show. But putting that scene in, I'm like, oh, it's going to be like super nuanced and intense, and like, it's not going to be the fist pump win that we're all hoping for. He's going to lose, but he's got his family, so it doesn't matter. And it was kind of like intense where it's like, oh, but I think he does kind of need it. I need him to get it. And it's going to be like that moment where, yeah, that's not what Karate Kid's about. Even though Karate Kid won every time, it's not about winning. It's about friends and family and kind of, you know, standing up for yourself and all these things. I was still like, that's going to be really intense. I kind of can't believe they're going to do that. And the way the fight goes out, it's like, well, he's not going to lose 3-0. So he's 2-0 down. And he's going to come back and then still lose 3-2. And I just think putting that Rocky reference into our minds was such a good way to build tension and stakes, which just wouldn't have been there whatsoever otherwise, because I just never would have even considered the idea that Johnny could lose. But because of that Rocky thing, the whole time I'm like, I can't believe he's going to lose. This is so crazy. I really want him to win, but I guess it's not about winning. But then when he wins, I'm like, yes, it's always about winning. That's what competition is. I mean, friends and family are good too, but he's got the win. So Kreese and Silver both have the most shocking, insane, mind-blowing endings I've ever seen of anything. It's just so unexpected. And then, like, you know what's going to happen before it happens? Like, as soon as, like, they're fighting on the boat, and it's one of the most, like, they're two slightly older gentlemen having a fist fight on a boat, and it's about as awkward as you'd expect that to be. No shade, it's just kind of funny, because so much of the action is so good in this show, and then sometimes they get the older actors to do fighting, and you're like, yeah, they're old. That moment where he knocks over the gasoline, it was just like, oh my god, they're going to explode. That is insane. Just truly crazy. But, like everything, super fitting. Like, I was shocked and I couldn't believe it. But then as soon as I realized what was going to happen, I'm like, this is the only way it could have ended. I also thought it was really clever, and I didn't expect him to die like this because he's got he's got cancer or he's got some kind of disease. I feel like maybe they don't disclose exactly what it is, but he's taking pills and he's only got 6 months left to live. And I thought that was kind of an interesting kind of like way to kind of get around having, like, because they're not going to have Johnny or Daniel like punch him in the heart and he dies. Like, they're not going to have them become murderers. That's never what this series has been like. But they kind of want to kill this really bad guy and end it, because I guess season 5 felt like, oh, he's done, he's in prison, it's over. And this season bringing him back is like, well, you can't just put him in prison, apparently. You can't put Kreese in prison either. They are just going to break, like, there's always kind of more room to grow. So the only way to end it, like, finitely is to kill them. But they didn't want one of our characters to become a murderer. So they're like, I don't know, he's got cancer or whatever. And I was like, I guess that's an interesting loophole. Clever way to kill him regardless. But then Kreese is like, no, we're going to both explode on a boat. I loved it so much. I also think it was really, really good to have one of the main villains who has had moments of redemption, and like he's definitely been more nuanced and slightly anti-hero at times, to stand up to Silver finally, and also to stand up for Johnny. And I just think that really, really works in terms of like everything they've been building to. Like I said, everything in these final episodes with all these characters, just, it feels exactly what should have happened. It feels like they've had these end points in mind for so long, where so much of what's been happening has been building to these moments. Kreese has been the villain for so very long, but he does get a final moment of redemption. And there's nothing I like more than a villain turned mild anti-hero or full anti-hero at times and gets that redemption moment. But because Kreese does feel like he was less anti-hero and more villain who's doing good things sometimes, he kind of doesn't deserve to get the redemption and the win where he kills Silver and survives. It is the kind of moment where it's like, no, he gets to kill and beat Silver for Johnny, but he dies in the process. And I do kind of think, it sounds harsh, but I do think that's what he deserves. And it was just a beautiful, powerful ending. Also, real big explosion, and I almost jumped out of my seat. I was so surprised. I was like, love it, these final couple of episodes were so good. When it ended, it was just Cobra Kai. I was like, what the actual fuck? That is crazy. So Sam and Tori, after so many fights and conflicts, I really, really loved that they didn't have a final fight for the 100th time. I liked that Sam stepped down and gave Tori the spotlight. They got to have a little sparring match where she's like, you should train me. You get to punch me in the face one last time, but as friends training. And I'm like, nice. They punch for a bit, but now they're mates. And Tori has maybe betrayed everybody one too many times. I didn't love that twist at the end of part 1, season 6. Whatever it was. I didn't love it. I was kind of like, it feels like a little forced. It's like going to add drama, but kind of forced drama. Hasn't everything been resolved? But then to have her finally kind of just get the chance to have that spotlight and win. I just think she deserved it more than Sam did, or maybe more that she kind of needed it more than Sam did. And I like how Sam's story ends, where she goes off and she's like, sorry, this is what I need to do. And Miguel's grown so much as a character that he finds out that she's going to be moving away and they're not going to be like close enough to have a relationship in the future forever. And instead of having like a big sook like a teenager would, or how he has, and all that melodrama is, maybe he's going to lose the fight because the love of his life isn't going to be the love of his life. I kind of loved how mature and it shows how much he's grown, because he's so mature now that he's like, I'm just happy that you're happy. And then he wins and kicks ass. And it's like, oh, Miguel is the greatest character ever. And I just love that growth of the character. Super, super good. But then, because it is still kind of sad that him and Sam are going to end up together, he runs to the airport and he's like, we're doing a finale thing where I run to the airport, and they kiss for a bit and they'll kiss for like one more month or whatever. And that's nice and sweet, and they get to spend that time together. And I think I really like that. Even though at the same time, it is still quite bittersweet, because they're not going to end up together forever. So yeah, Tori gets to have the big win and punch the Instagram girl in the face a bunch, and that's super satisfying. Once again, just a classic White Walker villain for season 6, where I'm like, I don't care about them, they're not nuanced or interesting, and yeah, who cares? But she gets to punch her in the face, and that's some good stuff. So Tori and Robbie's end is that they become like, I don't know, famous for punching wood in ads. Karate ad people. That's probably the one end of the plot where I'm like, I mean, it's good they're getting money. Like, Tori needed the money, so I guess that's what it's about. But it's kind of like, yeah, interesting. I mean, they get to do karate and people take photos of them and they make money. So that's good stuff. It just feels a little like, I don't know, every other plot ends and I'm like, oh, that's juicy stuff. And that one I'm like, that's kind of funny. So Hawk and Demetri are probably the only characters that I was a little disappointed with that kind of got sidelined and pushed to the sides like every other side character. At least unlike Kenny, they get lines of actual dialogue in these final 5 episodes. But like every character, all their plots this season were so contrived and so forced. And it's just kind of like, oh no, they were going to the same uni, but now they're not. And so thankfully, thank God, they just resolved that plot with like 2 lines of dialogue, and he's like, actually, I'm going to that school. And he's like, yay, we got to be best friends forever. And that's good stuff. Daniel's plot ends with his wife being like, you're still going to be a sensei because you love karate, and that's cool and fine. And I'm like, good. I'm glad there wasn't any forced conflict about that, because it's like, obviously that's how it's going to end for him. So it's super nice and good. But this final 5 episodes is really focused on Johnny. And so Johnny's end is that he's redeemed Cobra Kai, and he's redeemed himself and got the win. And so to have that final scene where he's standing there, the Cobra Kai emblem behind him, and he's like, huzzah, I won. And it ends. And I was like, wow, what a great ending. An almost perfect ending. Like, that's how you want to end the show. And then there was a mid-credit scene, and I was like, whoa, okay. Whoa. And I think there was something meta where they're like, we're doing a TV movie, we're going to do a movie or something, they're talking about that, or something, I can't even remember, because who cares about that part? It pans over, and we get a scene with Daniel, and he's sitting there with Johnny, they talk and do some stuff, and they're like, ha ha ha, we're best friends now, and it's like, that's nice. And I'm waiting for them to potentially set up for the movie he's doing with Jackie Chan, which I presume is part of the same universe, and actually in continuity, and after this, I don't know. Johnny gets up to go get food or to go to the toilet or whatever, and Daniel sits there, he sees a fly, we get a flashback to Karate Kid, and it's like, oh, okay. So Johnny got a final scene where he's like, he's won, he's redeemed Cobra Kai, and it ends. But then this final scene isn't necessarily a mid-credit scene that's going to set up a different movie, MCU style, which I kind of thought was. It's so that they can both get a final moment. And I think that's really nice, because Daniel's got the chopsticks out and he's going to get the fly. And it's like, this is a beautiful way to honor the legacy of that iconic film from the 80s. And it's a beautiful way to end this perfect legacy sequel TV series. Probably the best legacy thing that's ever happened ever. And I just thought it was so beautiful and emotional. And I imagined that the fly was about to land and he's about to get it again to show he's still got it, and it would cut to black. But no, No. Because Cobra Kai is about Daniel. But actually, it's about Johnny and Daniel. And so he goes to get the fly, and Johnny's like, BAM! No mercy! And he kills the fly, and I don't think I've ever been so happy, excited, shocked, and just... My heart was so warm and so filled with such pure joy and love. I think it might be the single greatest ending to a series ever. It perfectly distilled everything about our two main characters and everything about this show, and it distilled everything into about 5 seconds. It honored the legacy of this thing from the past. It honored how these characters have grown and changed and are now best friends, but also they're always going to be who they are, and they're always going to have their differences. And it was just such a beautiful combination, and just it had everything, and also just super funny. And I feel like I can't put into words how much I loved it and how it does everything so right. I just feel like it was that beautiful, just... He's all peaceful and stuff, and he's aggressive, but sometimes they are the same, but they're still different. You get it. It's... Oh my god. I loved it so very much. It reminded me of the ending of Justified, where it's just the perfect final scene, and maybe the best scene in the whole series. This felt like that, where I'm just like, I have had issues over season 6. I had issues in the first couple episodes of this part, where I'm like, this is still probably not my favorite season, but that is the best ending possible. I cannot even fathom an ending that would come close to how good this is. I loved it so very much. 10 out of 10. 5 stars. I love Cobra Kai, and it will never die. Oh, also, Stingray got to have a final scene, and he's all like, I'm the karate master now! Mom, I've got to pick up the dry cleaning now! And I'm like, ha 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 ha. Even when this show's a bit silly, it's very funny. It was nice to see Stingray come back, and he's gonna keep being Stingray, and that's fun and not troubling at all.